السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مساء الخير، حياكم الله جميعا في هذه المحاضرة اللي قدمها الدكتور رونالد جيكوبز بعنوان Structured on the Job Training. اسمحوا لي أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية. أحييكم جميعا حضوركم هاي المحاضرة، لكن راح نتكلم بعد قليل إن شاء الله باللغة الإنجليزية. I would like to thank everybody who's attending this tonight webinar, and I would like to thank also Dr. Ronald Jacobs, who will be presenting for tonight. A short introduction about Dr. Ronald. He's globally recognized as having introduced S-OJT, management and HR practice in the 1980s. Professor Jacobs authored the book Structure on the Job Training, Unleashing Employee Expertise in the Workplace, which has become the standard guide to help organizations and nations implement this training approach. Dr. Jacobs' most recent book, Work Analysis in the Knowledge Economy, documenting what people do in the workplace for human resources development, is based on over 30 years of research and practice, and has again become foremost resource in this important topic. Dr. Jacobs has extensive consulting experience in global organizations and government agencies, including General Motors, KLM Airlines, Abbott Laboratories, Kenneth Trucks, Seagate, Morton Salt, Rom and Haas, Kuwait National Petroleum Company, Honda, Hyundai Motors, and Huawei Telecommunications, among others. Ron designed and helped implement an extensive development system featuring the use of S-OJT, the Structure on the Job Training, S-OJT, for new hires, engineers for the Kuwait National Petroleum Company. Ron worked on S-OJT has influenced the national policy makers in Singapore, which in 1997 implemented the OJT 2000 initiative through Productivity Standards Board and Institute of Technical Education. Ron's work has also influenced the policies of the Ministry of Employment and Labor Republic South Korea and the National Group Initiative in Saudi Arabia. So without no further ado, I would like Dr. Ron to start the webinar. Dr. Ron, the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal. It's very kind of you to give me that introduction. And thank you again to everybody for being here at 9 o'clock at night. I'm coming to you from the US, and where I am coming from, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You may not know that today is a holiday here in the US. It's Memorial Day, so there's no work today. As Kamal said, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about structured on the job training, and also we're going to talk a little bit about an advancement in S-OJT having to do with SiTUATE. And so I am very pleased and appreciative that you are here today and has taken time to be interested in what we are going to do. Our session today will be, my remarks will be about 40 or 45 minutes in length, and then we will have some discussion at the end. And I promise to be very prompt and keep information provided to you without dragging out the information too much, so that there's plenty of time for your interaction as well. Kamal gave me a very nice introduction, so there's no use in repeating some of this. But again, I want to welcome all of you. In today's session, I see people from Morocco. I see people from the US as well, and I think also from Bahrain, and from Saudi Arabia. I should mention just very quickly, having worked extensively in Kuwait from about 2000 to 2012, I've had the opportunity, even after that as well, to spend time and give presentations in Bahrain, and also have done some work more recently in Saudi Arabia. It's possible that I have met some of you in a previous presentation or workshop in the region, and if true, and from Oman as well. So thank you very much, Hanifa. Thank you very much. You know, that's one country that I have not visited, have not done any work. So I look forward to the opportunity of visiting Oman. Our agenda for today, very quickly, is to talk very briefly about some of the challenges I think that people are telling me about what's happening in organizations today. One of the things that I have an opportunity, because being a professor and also being a consultant and also working with a digital platform, SiTUATE, is that I do get a chance to talk to people from a lot of different perspectives and find out what's on their minds. And I apologize that there is somebody from the UAE. So thank you very much for letting me know that. So we are very global in our reach in today's webinar. So thank you very much. Well, just after a very brief discussion about the training challenges, I want to share with you information about structured on-the-job training, what that is, how it's being used, how it's used in the past, and what some of the outcomes that organizations are receiving from this. And I want to share with you today also about SiTUATE. SiTUATE, as you will find out a little bit, is the digital version of structured on-the-job training. And I'm going to share that with you as much as I can within our time. And I hope, in terms of next steps, if you are interested, that we can arrange to have a live demonstration of the platform and even a discussion of how S-OJT and SiTUATE might be used in your context as well. So again, as we get started here, thank you so very much for your time. I truly appreciate your interest and hope this will be both informative and helpful to you in your own situations. As I have been able to chat with people, there have some training challenges seem to have emerged, partly because of COVID, partly because of this is where we were before COVID as well. I just want to briefly summarize these, and maybe you could think about some of the challenges in your own situation. I suspect you're coming from both private sector companies or government-sponsored companies, and also government ministries as well. One of the issues that continue to be of importance is to ensure that programs are strategic. They focus on performance. It's just not providing information to people, but it's also strategic. In other words, it's addressing a need, addressing a problem in the organization. And along with that, there's the need, of course, to develop skills, not just presenting ideas. And this has become especially critical today because when people are not, when they are separated from each other, people are working from home, they're in remote situations, it seems to become more and more difficult to ensure people have the skills to be able to perform what is expected of them. Another issue, training issue, is to be able to reach employees regardless of where they are. So before we expected people maybe to come for classroom training or online learning programs and things like that, but the workplace is defined, the boundaries of the workplace are so different today than they were just 2 years ago. We have all shared in this experience and have some common understanding of the limitations it's put on what we can do. Another issue that I hear from organizations is that they want people to engage their employees in learning. This has become a much more important issue for today because many people are returning to the workplace. They have been out of the workforce. They have to learn new skills, or something has changed because of the COVID or the use of technology. So engaging employees in learning is an important issue for people in organizations. And finally, because of this issue of retention and keeping the best employees, there is now this renewed focus on development plans and planning, because we know that development does have an impact, a relationship with retention. In spite of everything that we can't control, there are certain things that we can control. Well, these are just a few 5 issues that I've seen that people are talking about. And you might have some challenges in your own situation that you are facing. If you do, this is not a lecture. I see this more as a conversation. So I encourage you, if you wish to raise your hand, that's fine. I'd be pleased to stop. Or you can put some comment in the chat. I am very good at looking at the chat box and also continuing on and responding to the chat as well. So please, if you would like to respond, please do that. And I will even pause here for a minute if anybody would like to talk about or express some ideas about what's happening in their organizations. Would anybody like to do that? That's fine. Well, okay, we have Ziad, okay. Very good question. Unstructured on-the-job training. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, and analysis of the training needs. Okay. If people ask questions, it may be better to wait and we can respond to the questions, and that would be great. I will record these questions and we'll come back to these. Unstructured on-the-job training obviously continues to be an issue in organizations today as well, especially with issues of limited resources that we have today. Well, one of the responses even before COVID that we saw when people thought about training was to think about classroom training. And these pictures are somewhat representative, perhaps, of some training sessions in a classroom setting. There's all kinds of issues about learning in a classroom, both positive and negative. The positive is, obviously, you can control the setting, you can control what's being transferred to the trainees. Although some of the issues, as you can see, is that you're not sure everybody's listening. And of course, you don't know if they are actually acquiring skills and having the opportunity to practice those skills. Each of these pictures is kind of interesting for me because you can see a person with their hand on their chin in 2 of the pictures, and you can see a training classroom with a window, which invites people to look out the window. These are always issues for us when we think about training. But then we get to unstructured on-the-job training. And I go back long enough in our field of training to remember that we have encouraged managers over the years to avoid training people in the work setting because of most of it was believed to be unplanned or unstructured in nature. And some of the words that we used to use, some of the labels we used to use for these was follow Joe training or buddy training. And there was also, from AT&T long ago days, sit by Sally training. And I've even heard people talk about babysitting, where from the perspective of an experienced employee, they were asked to train a novice employee. And we know what is the common result of unplanned or unstructured on-the-job training. Unpredictable work outcomes. You just don't know always what's going to happen. Unreliable work outcomes. In other words, you don't know from trainee to trainee, are you going to get the same result? You can get increased frustration. Frustration, people on the trainees' part, because they have to learn it on their own. It's very frustrating and anxiety producing. We know that unstructured on-the-job training in some indirect way contributes to turnover because it creates more anxiety and frustration, and people are not in the mood today to have to stay in a job. We've seen that quite a bit, and people will simply move on. This is not good for the organization. And we know for sure, and I'll share with you some of the results of my own studies, that we see increased quality and safety issues. In other words, problems. People get hurt, there's more rework, more defects, all those kinds of things. It takes longer. So we know that some of the issues that we're dealing with in training, some of the most common kinds of responses are just not going to work anymore. Some of you may be familiar with my work from, it has started actually in the 1980s, believe it or not. And I started working with structured on-the-job training as a means to address the challenges of the time of that particular period of time, particularly in the US, when there was a need for greater productivity and quality. And so S-OJT came around at a time, again, when there was a need for greater reliability in terms of training outcomes. Structured on-the-job training was planned, and I'm going to share with you in just a minute exactly what that means. Planned S-OJT, planned versus unplanned. And the basis of S-OJT has to do with using experienced employees, not HRD or professional trainers, in the actual work setting. Now, of course, some organizations use professional trainers, but for the most part, we're making use of experienced employees because that's who may be doing the training regardless. And another important aspect of S-OJT is that it focuses on tasks. So we have to know what the tasks are, not just training topics. Thank you, Mohammed. We will make that available to you. This session is being recorded. Thank you very much for asking about that. In my own work, I was able to introduce the term structured on-the-job training formally as a result of a project that I did and wrote an article about it in a journal in 1987. It seems like a long time ago, but it had to do with implementing structured on-the-job training and looking at the financial impact of what happened as a result of that training. So this was the first mention of S-OJT in our literature, which is kind of interesting. Today, as some of you may know, I have a book on S-OJT, and Mr. Kamal mentioned this book. It's available from all the booksellers. And also I have another book on work analysis. Together, these books complement organizations that wish to implement structured on-the-job training. I don't know how many of you have seen the book. Maybe it's possible you may have seen the book, or maybe even possess a copy of the book. But as I say, it's available through all the booksellers, Amazon, and places like that. When I think of structured on-the-job training, S-OJT, this is the definition that I have been using for the past several years. And I try to reflect on this definition every time I work with a client or work with students to try to make sure that it still remains relevant. Hi, Mohammed. Would you like to make a comment or ask a question? Please do.
Can unmute yourself, Mohammed?
Mohammed, it looks like you're still on mute. We can come back. That's okay. We can go ahead if you can. Okay, we can come back. That's no problem. For me, S-OJT, the definition is the planned process of having an experienced employee train a novice employee on a unit of work in the actual work setting. But it's a fairly simple definition, I think. Let's see what we have. A chat comment. Mohammed, would you like to make a comment, ask a question? Go ahead if you wish.
محمد بس افتح المايك بس.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
There we are.
Yes, this is my mistake. Anyway, sir, I have just one question, if you don't mind.
Sure, of course.
Yes, you are talking about the structural training in class.
Mm-hmm.
I have just only one question about the lesson plan before we gonna go to the classroom. How to just really get this pre-plan or lesson plan if I have training on job.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how to prepare the classroom before we gotta start, and how to present the presentation. There is any skills for the presentation we should have it before?
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. It depends if there are prerequisite knowledge and skills that should be learned before the task is actually learned. Okay, so it may be necessary to provide an orientation to the trainees, or it might be necessary to provide training on prerequisite information. Okay, but that should be taken care of by the trainer. Raid, I'm trying to read your message here as quickly as I can. And there's a couple of messages here. And Ziad also has a comment here. Let me respond to these questions by continuing to explain these components of the definition of S-OJT. I'm really excited that some of you are asking such great questions so early in the conversation. When I look at this definition, I think of 5 key components to this definition. First of all, it's a planned process. S-OJT is planned. What that means is that there's a design process. I'm going to show you that in just a minute, which means how did we design the program? There's the delivery steps that the trainer would be developed to use. And there's also the implementation process into the organization, the change management process. So when I think of planned, this is what I think of from a planned or structured OJT perspective. When I think of the experienced employee, that's the person who knows the task adequately and also has been qualified to be an S-OJT trainer. So there's 2 components: qualified to be an S-OJT trainer and also has some understanding of the task. Do you notice that I do not use the word expert employee? An expert employee is a different category. We may not always have experts in our organizations, but of course we have, to some extent, experienced employees. The third component of the definition is novice. The novice could be anybody. It could be a new hire. It could be me. It could be you. Anybody that's experienced change in the expectations in their work. So we're looking for the right person to train. We're looking for the right time to train that person and making sure it's the right content. based on the work that's expected to be performed. And that leads us to number 4, the unit of work. S-OJT requires that we do an analysis of the work. Some of you may be familiar with job analysis, perhaps even the topic of DACM. DACM is a job analysis technique. Many times when I work with organizations, people misunderstand that S-OJT is going to prepare people to become experienced, the same level as the trainer. Well, we know that's not possible. We use S-OJT to train people to be able to perform their jobs enough that they can begin to get more experience and become more experienced and possibly become experts after that. Training cannot reproduce an experienced employee. That's one of the misunderstandings. And then finally is S-OJT occurs not in a classroom, but it occurs in the work setting or a lab setting or some area, some setting that has the same critical attributes of what work is to be done. So this is what I think about when I think about S-OJT. Mohammed, please.
Thank you. I have questions about the high potential employee, because our expectation when we design on job training, we feel the high potential employee after completing the job training, he will be experienced like the next level or like this. Now you told us this not in reality. This not right. And I totally agree. But how can help the business to understand this just training for high potential, not to make them ready for the next level?
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. And
Thank
yeah, we know for certain that training has limitations. Training doesn't give people experience on the job. Training gives people the ability to perform at a particular level as identified by the expectations of a trained person. It seems like a common sense. You cannot leave a training program and expect that person to be an expert from the training program. They need additional experience. They need contact with other things. They need even additional training as well. So high potential people who receive S-OJT are the people that, they are on their way. When I tell people about S-OJT, it's like building a house. The house has to rest on a foundation. And unless the foundation is solid, and that's what S-OJT gives people, a solid foundation to build their knowledge and skills afterwards. So thank you, Hanifa. I will respond to that in just a minute. Does that make sense, Mohammed, the way I've explained it?
Yeah, thank you, Ronald. But if we can explain about the on-job training as a development journey, is on-job training from percentage of 70, 20, 10, is from 20 or from 70?
You broke up a little bit, so I'm not sure I heard everything you said. Can you repeat it maybe? Go ahead.
Yes, as you speak, Ronald, on-job training is one of the development of the high potential program.
Mm-hmm.
In our training philosophy, we depend on 70, 20, 10 to develop our high potential.
Mm-hmm.
In job training from the 20% or from 70%?
Yeah, I hear quite a few organizations talk about 70, 20, 10.
Yes.
And I should send you an article about that
Okay.
because the 70, 20, 10 is just an idea. It's never been validated in any way scientifically. It's just an idea. It's just an estimate. And we don't know if that's true. What is true, though, Mohammed, is that if you want people to learn how to perform something on their jobs, S-OJT is very good to do that. But we also know that there may be prerequisite information, knowledge and skills to go with those that people have to learn beforehand. And S-OJT is not appropriate for that type of information. In the project that I did in Kuwait, we learned that very clearly that new hire engineers, before they could perform certain tasks in the field, there were courses that they had to take beforehand. So I don't know 70-20-10 if that's true. All I do know is that if I want people to perform, I need to use the task as a way of identifying what are the prerequisites and being able to give them the correct way, the best and most appropriate way to learn that information. Sometimes I think we hurt ourselves as a field because we give managers ideas like 70-20-10 and think that's going to help us, but sometimes it doesn't always help. It creates some confusion too. Hi, Zainab. Do you have a comment?
Yes, me, Ronald.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, just I want to add some comments. Is that S-OJT is the way to give the employees the right competency to do well the tasks. And to have competency, there is it passes to develop competency. It can be developed on several steps. For example, first of all, is to have the basis of the doing how to do tasks, and after it's more. Sorry, I have my vocabulary in French, technical French.
I can't help you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's the idea is that S-OJT is to give the employees the right competency to do well the task. Is that
yes,
my
that's very good. That's very good. Thank you, Zainab. In French or English, it was very good. In both French.
Ron,
yes, go ahead.
Ron, I want to just really add something for this
yes.
S-OJT system.
Go ahead, Mohammed.
I think as a system, the training input, training process, and the training outputs can be identified. Yeah, like the system also maybe recognize that S-OJT occur in organization setting. I think training inputs, if I have no idea about this, but maybe you will correct me if I'm just have mistaken. I think training inputs, I'm talking about the S-OJT system processes.
Mm-hmm.
I think training inputs like experienced employee, training location, task to be learned, technology. Is it right, this, Mr. Ron?
Mm-hmm.
For as a training input, is it correct?
I believe so. I believe I understood what your comment was. And
our training process, I think, just really get ready to train and deliver the S-OJT model. Also, at the end of the training process, maybe we need to ensure that the trainee has learned. Then
mm-hmm.
maybe the output of this process, maybe training performance, work performance, trainee development. Is it correct, this process, or I'm just really have something wrong?
I think what I hear you say is correct. And
thank you, Professor.
Okay, and so we will have another discussion. It sounds like a little bit more information I'm going to share with you might help clarify some of that information.
Yes,
which would be great. And we can continue this as long as you wish.
I'm grateful to you.
Yes. There is somebody that has their hand up, but your name is in Arabic and I cannot ask what your name is. So if you can tell me your name, I would love to hear from you.
So Ahmed Zahrani.
Yes, good evening to everybody. This is Ahmed Zahrani. I'd like to add a comment from my past experience on the OJT program. To me, the OJT program is divided into two parts. One of those parts are in the classroom, we call it formal training, and the other part of the OJT will be performance OJT on the job itself. The task should be used, and that task should be under the governance and observation of the trainer.
Right.
That's all. Thank you.
Right. I want to share, these are great, wonderful comments. Thank you very much. This is not in any way disturbing us in our progress here. It's actually adding very much to the conversation. I wanted to share with you some of the major projects that I've been involved with, and also a range of projects, because many people believe that only S-OJT is appropriate for lower level technical skills, but that's not true. I have done S-OJT projects for frontline employees and also for supervisors, as you can see in the second case study. Also to meet government requirements, FDA, Food and Drug Administration requirements. So if some of your organizations are ISO, have ISO quality management standards and requirements, it's part of that as well. Also for managers in a retail sector, S-OJT has been used for that. And also the last one on that list has to do with a very large project that I did in Kuwait for a number of years to help set up a system for new hire engineers in the petroleum sector. That's right, Ziad. Also for managers, as long as we can identify the tasks, the units of work that we expect of them, we can do that. And we can surely talk about this in more detail as we move forward. I thought you might be interested in the KNPC case study. And of course, this will be made public. This will be made available to you, this recording, so you can have a chance to read this. But this is a release from KNPC when we did the project. Again, as I said, that this was a program used for new hire engineers, and quite an extensive project. If any of you are interested in the project, we wrote an article, a report about the project, an extensive case study. And if you're interested in reading it, please contact Mr. Kamal or myself by email, and I will make that available to you. Absolutely. It's a very good case study because it talks about the process, it talks about what was done, and it talks about the outcomes as well. In fact, at the end of the project, we delivered a presentation at ATD and shared that with the community as well. I think most of you are familiar with the Association of Talent Development. So we will make that available to you, and we'll gladly share that information for your benefit as well. S-OJT has been used in a number of different situations in organizations. It is first of all being used to address a specific problem. So if there's a specific issue that comes up and training is required, hold on, Mohammed, I'll respond to that question. Great. So if there's a specific question that comes up, a specific problem, S-OJT might be used to address it. For example, if there's a quality improvement process that has occurred and people identify a new way of doing something then that information, those new skills have to be transferred to everybody involved. Mohammed is asking whether S-OJT can be used for technical training. Yes, of course. Managerial training, in other words, people having to do things through the efforts of others. Yes, of course. And even S-OJT is used for what's called awareness training. For example, onboarding. In fact, there are a number of instances where S-OJT is used as part of the onboarding experience for trainees. Mohammed, I hope that that answers your question.
Ronald, excuse me, please. I ask about the behavioral competencies. If I have some leaders in organization,
yeah,
with have problem like in collaboration or communication or customer, can make a structure on job training for this behavior to learn about it?
I see. I understand your question now. I understand her.
Yes.
Very. And the reason I sort of chuckled, I laughed a little bit when you asked. I wasn't laughing at your question. I was laughing at because I've heard that question so many times before. And unfortunately, when we think about S-OJT, we are thinking about the things that people are expected to do on their jobs. Okay, so we're thinking about duty and tasks and those kinds of things. When we think about competencies, a competency describes a characteristic of a person who is successful in a particular job role. So by definition, S-OJT is not appropriate for competencies if you understand how I have defined competencies. I talk about this in my book on work analysis, the idea of the difference between competency on one side and job knowledge and skills on the other side. So it's not something, you know, and the other reason I sort of laughed is because when we start talking about competencies, and we can talk about competencies if you wish, that's fine. But it goes into a longer conversation about what is a competency, something called competency analysis, and then something called competency development. How do you develop people to be able to possess those competencies? S-OJT is about being able to perform a particular a unit of work. And hold on, Salah. I know you had asked before, and it's very difficult. It's not appropriate to use S-OJT. I wish you could take me to your managers and we could have this discussion. I can make available some additional information to you if you're interested about the differences, what a competency means. Thank you, Mohammed. Salah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just had a small comment, which is the S-OJT is a very beautiful concept so far as I'm learning now. Mm-hmm. So I prefer for our colleagues, the attendees, if they can postpone the questions to the end of your presentation, in order to not interrupt the recording and to get the big plans in which we can discuss later on, inshallah.
Okay, very good.
So much. Appreciate it.
Okay, very good. And I know that if people have questions, I hate to delay the question, but let's accept that. And we are almost halfway through the presentation, so we'll soon be able to come back. Another way that organizations are using S-OJT is to cross-train people where people are in a work process or in a work area which they have to share information and responsibilities. Another is the job-based, much like the KNPC case study, where the entire job was learned through S-OJT and also through the prerequisite courses that supported the S-OJT. And finally, S-OJT is used in a blended sense, where you might, for example, have a management course that's offered either online or in a classroom setting. And then you have an S-OJT component, which is the skills, being able to do things. For example, how to conduct a performance appraisal, or how to provide feedback to a subordinate employee. Those kinds of things would be learned through S-OJT, but there would be prerequisite knowledge and skills as well. Okay. So here is the process that we use for developing and implementing and evaluating S-OJT programs in organizations. And this is the program, this is the process that we used at KNPC. When you see the case study, you will see a process very similar to this one. You decide when it's best to use S-OJT. You analyze the work, which may mean doing work analysis, job analysis, task analysis, those kinds of things. Develop the trainers, obviously, making sure that experienced employees are able and understand what is required to be an S-OJT trainer. Prepare the S-OJT modules, the documents that go along with the training, to deliver the S-OJT, for people to use a 5-step set of events to deliver the S-OJT, and also to evaluate. Now, just a few days ago, I did a webinar that was a public webinar, and it will be available on YouTube within a day or so, but it talks about my work in doing financial impacts of S-OJT programs. And I will make sure that Mr. Kamal gets that information of once it's posted on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel for SiTUATE, and you'll be able to review that. It'll be a review about what is S-OJT, and also information about how to do a financial analysis, how to do an impact study of S-OJT. Well, where we are today, I'm very happy that some of you have commented about the importance of S-OJT, but where we are today is a changing landscape, and I think most of us know this today. The work that I have been doing for the last number of years, some of it, a lot of it, is based on what was occurring during World War II. Within, you may have heard of the Training Within Industry project that was at the United States from 1940 to 1945. And through that program, the organizations, the companies that made production, that produced equipment, material for the war effort, they had to participate in the TWI project. It was the beginning of S-OJT. My own work is in part based on what happened during S-OJT, or for the TWI program. Mohammed, do you want to ask a question, or do you want to wait? It's up to you. It's fine with me.
No, I have a question, sir.
Go ahead, I'm sure.
Is there any relationship between S-OJT and financial benefits?
Yes, of course, absolutely. And I
can you explain, please?
I can certainly explain to you. We have, for one thing, the YouTube video will be available Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday, tomorrow, or day after, because of the holiday. It's not available today. And the workshop was on Friday, so you'll just be able to see a recording of the workshop. But we have looked at, I'll be very, very brief, and then we can talk about more details. We have looked at 2 different questions, Mohammed. We've looked at training efficiency, the impact of reducing the training time, and also training effectiveness. What happens to the quality of the work when people learn through S-OJT? And we've done many, many case studies, and we've published many of those case studies. In fact, as a professor, when I asked my students to do a project on S-OJT, they include that information as part of the project. So it is something that I believe is critically important to do. Okay, Hassan is sharing with you the registration, but of course I believe it's the registration for the session that's already occurred. But Mohammed, we have done many studies like that, and we even did one for KNPC as well. And I would love to be able to chat with you about that more, and anybody else that would like more information. Well, coming from my work that has occurred through 2020 or so, is the realization that we need to upgrade S-OJT using technology. And that's where SiTUATE is. SiTUATE is a platform that I've developed with a partner that provides the same features of S-OJT, and it gives more integration and opportunities. For example, when the trainer and the trainee are not in the same location. And I'll share a little bit more information about SiTUATE here in just a minute. Okay. I might mention that when I was doing work in the region, that I had extensive conversations with a number of organizations. I've been to BTI in Bahrain, in Manama, and I've been to BOPCO, did a number of workshops for BOPCO, and some other organizations as well. SiTUATE is a digital platform, somewhat like a learning management system, but it's not meant to be a learning management system. It's meant to be a training system. It keeps all the key features of S-OJT. It allows you to conduct the job and task analysis, and it allows you to prepare the training guides without going through extra steps. It allows you to deliver the training virtually, or you can do it in person in the way it used to be as well. The platform allows you to make it easier to do S-OJT without changing the result. And it gives you a way to integrate the performance checks. I think there was a question about evaluating trainee performance, to integrate the idea of trainee performance and also the training plans that people have as well. And as I mentioned, it has the value added components because it gives you the ability to conduct the job and task analysis. It gives you the ability to do what's called an occupational analysis and some other things as well. Let me just give you this is a picture of the dashboard of SiTUATE. And SiTUATE, we do not have that yet, Hisham, because these are just, it's not really a formal course, but we can talk about that. I'd be interested in, Hisham, where you are and what organization you're with. I don't know, I might mention now, I don't know if Mr. Kamal had mentioned this, but my plan is to be in the region in Saudi Arabia and perhaps some of the other parts in the Gulf in the fall. And because I have some work that we are doing with Aramco, and there's a very good chance that I will be planning a trip to the region in the next several months. But this is what the dashboard of SiTUATE looks like. SiTUATE is for the trainer, for the trainee to use, for the developer of the training, also for managers. So it's a platform that everybody is used because it's a training system, not a learning management system. Here are some of the things that's in the system. You can analyze the work. It gives you drop-down ability to easily do a job analysis, to integrate information from other sources of information, to do task analysis, occupational analysis. Also, there's a template there to do a skills gap analysis where you have a job analysis currently and you do another job analysis, and it identifies which tasks are new, and it starts generating those tasks, and so that you can be able to address those in a spreadsheet format. The training guides, it gives you the choice of either developing a trainer guide with helpful cues and then a trainee guide. There's an onboarding module as part of SiTUATE. There's a trainee tracker that allows the trainee to go from the prerequisite links back to the task that they're supposed to learn. What's great about the system is that it will not allow trainees to continue learning the task until they've completed the prerequisites. And so it makes sure that there's mastery. It's an embedded system where you can do real-time communication, deliver the training if the trainer and the trainee are in different locations. So you can do the scheduling and the delivery either remotely or in person. Either way is fine. There's a management component to it where you can have managed trainers in terms of what tasks that they are qualified to conduct the training on, and the feedback that they've received from trainees and also from trainees, so that it's the performance check that occurs at the end of each of the training sessions is automatically updated into the system and automatically updated into the training plan as well. I might mention that because this is a relational database, that whenever there are changes that occur, for example, in the tasks, that information automatically goes downstream. So all the training guides are updated, the performance checks are updated, and those kinds of things. So you don't have a problem that many times I've experienced where things become obsolete because information is changed, the work somehow has changed. And finally, there's an oversight evaluation component to the SiTUATE where you have a training evaluation. It'll lead you through an ROI if you want to do it. Plus, it'll keep track for a manager's use to identify what is the progress of all the trainees across the various tasks that they might be asked to learn. So this is the SiTUATE dashboard information. We don't really have time. I can maybe share live, but if you're interested, I would love to be able to schedule a time that you can see a live demo of SiTUATE and how it actually works. Now, any questions that you have, we can respond to as well. Just another summary of that is it is focusing on skills, tasks, not on topics for the training. It integrates the job and task analysis with the training guides, the performance checks, and the training plans. It gives flexibility. One of the interesting things that we could have used on the Kuwait project is that it allows multiple ways for students, for the trainees to perform. You can do it live, you can record the trainee doing something, or it also has a submission box so that if there's a project or something. And also it allows for multiple raters so that the trainer could be a rater, there could be an evaluator who is a rater, that kind of a thing. There's an onboarding process. It reduces training time compared to other OJT and online programs. And we have demonstrated an improvement in work quality. We could talk about this for some time. And you can update the materials dynamically. So as I mentioned, as the work changes, then that information changes as well. And managers can view all the trainees, all the employees on a real-time basis. I'm really pleased by the opportunity to think about advancing S-OJT, because so many years we've done basically the same thing. And all because of COVID, it has, in a sense, stirred us to say, what else might be possible? What advancements can we make in terms of using S-OJT without losing the critical aspects of S-OJT? As I finish up my comments here, I would like to remind you, if you wish, please look for me on LinkedIn under my name, Ronald Jacobs. Please join me, and that's where we make all of our announcements. We do have a YouTube channel and a website, SiTUATE-training.com. But what I would propose, if you're interested, is if you're interested to go and learn more, we can schedule a demo and a discussion about what it is your situation. We might come to an agreement. I prefer to work with organizations from the perspective of a proof of concept. In other words, we don't want to implement S-OJT or SiTUATE in a broad sense. We would rather work small and learn from the experience and then use that as a basis for the next step. Along with it, in working with organizations, we make sure that the trainers are trained, the staff know a little bit more about job and task analysis, and whatever support that's necessary to implement the pilot solution and provide that support, and of course, to evaluate the results. So thank you very much for, I may come back if we want to talk about it, but thank you very much for your time. Some of your questions were great and deserve a little bit more time and discussion. And we can do that. We have time, as much time as you would like to stay on. But if you do have a question, please open your mic or let me know what your question is. Thank you, Ron. Mohammed Amar, thank you for your questions. As I say, the webinar that I did on Friday will be available on YouTube probably in a day or so. And I will make sure that you know about it. And I will make sure that Mr. Kamal has a copy of the case study, the KNPC case study, to make sure that he can distribute to everybody.
Sure. Thanks so much, Dr. Jacobs. And I would like to thank all the attendees. Yes, you asked about the case studies, the more information about the methodology, and this will be available for all those who attended and those who registered as well. And the webinar will be again recorded, and it will be the link will be available for all those who registered. So don't worry about that. So all the articles available will be sent to you. Mm-hmm. And now we have a few minutes if you'd like to ask any questions. Mr. Ahmed Zahrani. We can.
Yeah. Yes, Doctor. Yes, Doctor. I'd like to. From my understanding, there is an S-OJT and there is an OJT, and there is a difference between them. Who is responsible about the S-OJT and who is responsible to plan the OJT?
Well, that's a great question. And most of the time, in most organizations, from my experience, managers and HR assume that people in the departments will take care of the OJT. They will take care of that. When I say OJT, I'm referring to unplanned on-the-job training. But when you talk about S-OJT, it requires some skills, some HRD skills, some trainer skills. And so I believe that there has to be a partnership between the field, the departments, and also the staff. So the staff may have to take leadership in helping the departments implement the S-OJT. It takes more specialized knowledge and skills than I think the departments may have.
That's great. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Does that help? Yeah, does that help?
Yep.
Thank you.
Ahmed, tell me, what company are you with? Are you with an organization?
Well, I am working in Saudi Airlines. I used retired. I'm retired from Saudi.
Okay.
But normally we use the OJT in Saudi Airlines, and we use it also in Saudi Arabia. We use it on Royal Saudi Air Force. They use the OJT program. Also Aramco, they use OJT.
Absolutely. And you know, because of FAA requirements and also the influence of the American military, of course.
Excellent. Yes.
You know, there's a long history of OJT in those organizations. And
thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, Mohammed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ahmed.
Doctor, I have a question from the chat box here from Hanifa. It says, why we cannot involve experts in the process, in the training process?
Very good question. Well, we can involve experts, but here's the issues. One issue is that in companies, we may not really have experts. Being an expert is a very high level of ability. And today, it may not be always possible to say that we truly have experts in our organization. That's why, or one of the reasons that I used the term experienced, because how to define what an expert is really something different from what we might have. An experienced person means that they know the work. They know how to perform the work well enough that they can transmit it to somebody else. The other aspect of that, Hanifa, is that we don't want to make it seem like only an expert with a high level of knowledge and skills is able to be a trainer. It's not only them, but it can be others as well. And maybe a third reason is because when you're dealing with experts in the most highest level that we think about, experts may have difficulty in providing effective training to people who are just learning. They may not have all the patience and the ability to ensure that somebody else who's a novice, who's so far below them in their knowledge and skills, will be able to develop in the right way. So we don't say experts can't, but sometimes there are not experts, and sometimes experts, we know experts sometimes don't want to be a trainer. They would prefer not to be, although that's not as much as before.
Right.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Are there any more questions?
Hanifa, do you have an experience with that? Do you want to share? Do you have any experience in preparing expert employees or experienced employees as trainers? I don't know if you want to open your mic or.
Well, assalamu alaikum. Good evening to everyone.
Salam.
In fact, I'm not a specialist in human resource. I'm an academic in the higher education institution in a university.
Okay.
Yeah, currently, I'm an assistant dean for academic support affairs. But I have the interest to attend and make some knowledge in this field. Thanks a lot. It was very fruitful.
Very much. Where are you at, in Saudi or in?
Oman.
No, I'm from Oman. Sultanate
Oman.
Oman.
Oh, you're the
Yeah.
person from
Yeah.
Oman. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm waiting, Hanifa, I'm waiting for your invitation to come to Oman.
Yeah, sure. You are very welcome. It will be our pleasure to have you in Oman here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
It's a very interesting country.
Yes. Mohammed,
Go ahead.
Yes, at the end of the session, I'm just to say thank you very much, Mr. Ron, and the company also. Thank you for all. I'm grateful. Appreciate what you've given. Thank you very much. And let me just say bye-bye because I'm very busy now. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, Mohammed.
For this opportunity.
Thank you for attending, Mohammed. Thank you very much.
Nice to
Appreciate
meet you. Nice to meet you.
Maybe we have just a few minutes for the last question.
Are there any other questions or comments? I know that there were so many questions during the session, and we didn't want to. One of the questions that was really quite interesting was about competencies, but go ahead. Salah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm asking in case if you have any like documented case studies that you can share regarding measuring the return on investment on the concept itself.
Yep.
I'm a bit interested in kind of measuring stuff and measuring things that could generate value added to organizations plus some certain impact on the higher level.
Absolutely, Salah. And I will send some articles to Mr. Kamal and make those available.
Saleh, we are neighbors, so I can lend you this book.
No, don't lend it to him. Make him buy a copy.
You should buy it on Amazon.
We'll buy it, but we need Ron's signatures in it.
Okay. When I come.
We need a signature. I have from Kaplan, from Norton, from Rome. Like so many authors I met in person. I got the Marshall Goldsmith and so many of these.
It makes it more valuable, right?
It has a value to myself, yes. Okay. Certainly it does. Thank you.
Okay. Ziad has a message in Arabic I can't read, but
he's saying that he is so happy to be here with me and Saleh and yourself. So thank you very much, Ziad.
Thank you very much, Ziad.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We passed the time.
Yeah. We did good. And thank you very much to everybody. And perhaps we will make sure that we will let you know when I do come to the region, and maybe we will organize some sessions so that we might be able to have face-to-face training. That would be very nice.
Yeah, this is one of the things I'm discussing with Dr. Jacobs, if when and how we'll organize the coming training course. That is one of our agenda. So whenever it's organized and done, we will inform everybody and we'll announce it. And again, I would like to thank Dr. Jacobs for his time, for his effort, and thank you for attending this webinar. And we'll make the recording link available to all. And of course, the articles we promised to send you to everybody. So thanks again. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. And you too, Doctor. Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam.